Hello there, gorgeous, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome again, and thank you for gracing me with your presence. Today, I will be covering the topic of how we can master emotional intelligence so that we can thrive in every aspect of our lives. We live in a world that is full of challenges and full of constant change. So it's only right that we learn how to navigate and also how to ride the waves of change and uncertainty while also being regulated and being balanced. That takes a lot of emotional intelligence. And if you have never tapped into your emotional intelligence, then this may be the reason why you feel overwhelmed and naturally lean towards being anxious about life as opposed to being able to govern yourself accordingly. So if you do find that you end up feeling very anxious about uncertain situations, and you may potentially even be in a position where if and when you are faced with difficult conversations, you're unable to articulate what you want because you're coming from a place where it's super emotional and you're not really able to gather your thoughts and gather your emotions and convey the message that you want. And if anything that I've said right now resonates with you and how you've been conducting yourself, then this is the video for you to watch. So if this is the first time you've come across emotional intelligence, I can hear you asking, Sheila, what is emotional intelligence, and can I cultivate it in my own life in order for me to see the benefits? Well, I'll give you a few tips on how you can actually cultivate it while also letting you know exactly what it is and how it shows itself in your life. Here are some tips that can give you guidance and also help you navigate the path to tapping into your emotional intelligence. The first thing is becoming self-aware. Are you self-aware? And do you understand yourself and your emotions? When you start to feel a certain way about a particular situation, do you know what has triggered it? Do you actually know your triggers? Because when you know your triggers, you are able to control your emotions better, as opposed to when you are sideswept by perhaps a statement that somebody may say or a situation that may happen that you did not see happening. It's important to be self-aware, because the sooner you are self-aware, the more you are in control of your situations as well as your reactions, even when you are in a situation that is not favorable to you. It's very important to carry yourself with grace, and especially when emotions are high, carrying yourself with grace and practicing patience and also taking your time to respond can be your saving grace, because there's some situations where if you're not cool, calm, and collected, things could spiral out of control. And if you do not have the emotional intelligence, you could find yourself on the receiving end of an interaction that is not very pleasant. So the first thing I would like you to do is to become self-aware. If you've never really sat down with your emotions and figured out why you do the things you do, why you react the way you do, then I would highly encourage you to take a pen and paper and start to write down all the different scenarios that you've encountered and how you've presented in those scenarios. Have you presented in a way that you're proud of yourself? Would you say you're proud of yourself based on the interactions you had when you were upset? And if not, you need to really start to figure out, how can I best come across, even if it means I'm still being assertive, but how can I best come across in said scenarios? This is how you start to develop that self-awareness, because you're not just going through life blissfully unaware of who you are and why you do the things you do. Instead, you become hyper aware of what you do and you conduct yourself accordingly. And through doing this experiment of self-awareness, you will start to see a pattern that you naturally fall into when it comes to your behaviors. And when you see a pattern and you find a problem, that's where you can now include the solution. And I'll give you some solutions further down in the video. So the second thing that you can do to cultivate emotional intelligence is to practice assertiveness. When you say something, be assertive about it. Not aggressive, not combative, assertive. When you are speaking and you are trying to get your point across, be very clear, be concise, and be assertive. You're more likely to get a response from people, even when they're emotional, when you're factual, you're concise, and you are assertive. When you seem like somebody who is indecisive, somebody who is unsure of herself, and then you come across emotional, you are creating a recipe for disaster and a recipe for confrontation. So it's very important that you start practicing how to speak assertively and also affirm yourself If you are not confident, you need to learn how to affirm yourself, because if and when you speak with a tone that may be deemed as negative or that may be deemed as rude, you need to know exactly when that happens, because assertiveness can easily be mistaken for attitude if and when said in the wrong context. And in the heat of the moment, if you're having a disagreement with somebody, the last thing you want is to trigger them and to make them think that you're adding fuel to the flame. So if you struggle with communication, start learning and practicing how to speak, and also how to convey your message so the person who is listening to you can understand and also comprehend fully what you are saying. So the best way to kind of wrap this up, when I talk about being assertive, it's about getting your message and conveying your message and or your boundaries confidently and respectfully. You don't want to go into a conversation, especially when it's getting heated, and come across as you being disrespectful. That is essentially what we're doing in this section. So as I mentioned in the first tip, you need to become aware of who you are and why you do the things you do. But this next tip is very important. Once you learn how and why you do the things you do, you need to tap into emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is particularly important for women because most of us are impacted by our cycle. Can sometimes mean that we may have points during the month or even throughout the month where our emotions are a little bit more heightened than other times. But when you are aware of yourself and you know when this happens, because you've taken time to study yourself and you've been curious about who you are, you'll start to realize that even when you, for example, are PMSing, you're having periods where your emotions are kind of yo-yoing and you're not too sure what is happening, you're still able to regulate yourself emotionally. And this can actually look like meditating, speaking to yourself positively, journaling, stepping away from a situation. And all in all we're trying to do by doing all these different things is to manage our reactions in the given situation. So if you manage your reaction accordingly, then you're less likely to end up in a negative interaction with whoever you need to deal with. Because again, managing your emotions, if you can manage your own emotions, even if the other person that you are speaking to is dysregulated, you're more likely to take control of a situation as opposed to both of you being at the same level of irritation and also aggravation. So you need to be mindful of that. If you can be aware of emotions, why you do what you do, what triggers you, what are your patterns, then tap into managing and regulating your emotions, then you stand a better chance of being emotionally intelligent overall. And if you struggle with understanding your patterns and you're not very self-aware and you don't even know what emotional regulation is, then you can definitely look into a ton of videos and resources here on YouTube that can give you guidance into how to manage and regulate your emotions. And if that doesn't help, this is something that you can have looked at and also get help with from a professional. So I definitely want you to give yourself a fighting chance by making sure you understand yourself and you learn how to regulate your emotions. The next piece that I would love for you to add in order for you to cultivate a sense of emotional intelligence right where you are right now is understanding that empathy needs to be applied. When you apply empathy in this context, I mean that you need to put yourself in the other person's shoes. How do you think the other person would feel once they've heard the words you're about to say? How do you think the other person would feel once they've had an interaction with you? Because once you put yourself in their shoes, you may potentially deal with them a lot better and with a lot more compassion and kindness as you would do when you're thinking of them as another person, the other person, the person who's annoying me, so on and so forth. So the best way you can practice this is by listening actively. When you're communicating with each other, listen to what they're saying to you. Does it resonate with you? Is there something in there that you can actually take away and improve upon? And while you are listening to them, learn how to validate other people's feelings. Do not be the kind of person that says, well, sorry if I made you feel that way, but that wasn't my intention. You can actually listen actively, validate the person's feelings. If you've done them wrong, own up to it, take accountability and apologize for it. It's very important that you learn that We only move forward and we only improve as individuals when we learn how to connect, genuinely connect with each other. And by listening actively and validating the person's feelings, you are more likely to come across as showing genuine concern for them and their well-being. And as a result, you're more likely to connect with them. So this is why it's important to really understand yourself and know how you come across, because if you know you're somebody who comes across very much a straight talker, someone who has no filter, then you may really need to maybe rein in just a little bit when dealing with certain individuals. But again, you will only be able to do that once you learn how emotional intelligence works. Another aspect that we can add here in the mix is building upon your social skills. How are your social skills? Have you had time to develop strong interpersonal skills where you're able to communicate and even connect with just about anyone because you're open, you're receptive, you're listening actively? The communication you have with people is not dry, it's not stale, it's not bland, it's vibrant, it's active. That's because when you're coming from a point where you are open and you're curious about people, it's very likely that the conversations you have will be vibrant, will be stimulating. This is part of actually building your emotional intelligence, because it means you can go into any circles and navigate because you understand the basics of communication and the basics of tapping into that side of people that allows them to feel comfortable around you. This is a skill that can be built over time. You may not feel like you have it now, but once you've understood that social skills are important in navigating through life, whether that's work, family, friends, whatever it might be, being in a position to socialize and being able to socialize will only work to help you improve and be better in all aspects of life. This is because by fostering your social skills, what you are really doing is fostering positive relationships based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. And there isn't a better place to be than when you feel all of those things in one, and even the communication and the conversations that you have will flow a lot better. This one is a tough one because most of us don't necessarily want to be in a position where we feel like we need to build this muscle, but it's a necessary muscle to build, and that is emotional resilience. When you learn how to build your emotional resilience, you're more likely to bounce back from any setbacks that you have in life. Challenges and obstacles are bound to come in life, but the question is, will we have the emotional resilience to pick ourselves back up again and try? Will we have the emotional resilience to stand in the midst of a storm and have a conversation with somebody who we genuinely would rather not speak to? Will we have the emotional resilience to say, although this failed, I'm going to find a way to pick myself back up again, ignite that fire within myself again, and try? Emotional resilience is something that we need because, as I said, life is unpredictable. Sometimes it surprises you with not one, not two, not three, but multiple things. But if you're not equipped to ride the waves and to ride the tides that are going to come in really high, people who are not able to have emotional resilience are more susceptible to stress, anxiety, and all the things that come with not being able to regulate and manage your emotions. So if and when you start to realize you're not in a position where you can actually manage your emotions, again, it's very important to seek professional help or to speak to somebody that is trusted, that can help you and guide you towards working and sharpening your emotional intelligence. And it's worth adding here that somebody who has attained emotional resilience is someone that knows that obstacles only serve as an opportunity to learn and to experience life. And as a result, they will grow from it. And they learn how to maintain a positive outlook even in the midst of difficult times. And last but not least, I would like to encourage you to lean into support networks similar to this channel here, of people who are having similar experiences to you. Because when you have other people who are going through similar things, you will start to realize that you are not alone, that you are not the only person going through that scenario you are going through. You can actually connect with other like-minded people who can give you their ideas and their tips as to how they overcame. And by opening yourself up and being vulnerable and sharing your story with the right people, you will quickly start to realize that a lot of us are going through similar situations. It's just that we are at different stages in life. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you will start to build your emotional resilience, because you will see that that person went through something fairly similar to what I'm going through right now. And based on what they told me, it took them a year to 2 years to get over that particular situation. But now that I know that, how will I show up and present in my own life now that I am in that same driving seat and going through the same thing? It's important for you to meet people who encourage you even in your challenging times. It's important for you to connect with people who love on you even when you're not at your finest moments. It's important for you to connect with people who are open and vulnerable and want to share the experiences that they're also having, because in doing that you will start to realize again that you are not alone, that we're all in this together, and that the more you keep working on your emotional intelligence and the more you keep on working on your ability to grow and to develop and to evolve, the more likely you are to build a strong and solid and refined emotional intelligence over time. And again, if you haven't been doing this for a while or you haven't really come across it, I don't want you to put any pressure on yourself. I want you to understand that we all learn things at different phases. We all come across all these new concepts at different phases. And when this video finds you, if you're just coming across it now, I want you to know that it's a appointed time for you to start sharpening your emotional intelligence. Give yourself time, give yourself grace, and do not rush the process. When things start to click into place, you will start to realize that I know why I had to wait this long to come across this concept, but now that I've done so, I am excited to see where my life is going. Remember, positive affirmations are necessary if we want to have emotional intelligence. You are your biggest cheerleader, so continue cheering yourself on. So in whichever scenario or situations you may find yourself, I hope that you can take some of the tips that I've shared in this video to help yourself with your emotional intelligence. Whether that's tapping into your self-awareness, practicing how to be assertive, or learning how to self-regulate your emotions, I hope that from one or two of these things, you can take it away with you, practice day in and day out how you can be the most emotional, intelligent version of yourself, and you can walk through life in an almost effortless fashion because you've learned how to tap into who you are and master your emotional intelligence. So until next time, my lovelies, I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you have found something that resonates with you. And if you have found something that resonates with you, do not forget to leave it in the comment section below. And until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click on one of these lovely videos here that you can also enjoy after this one.